Welcome to the Deep Dive. We sift through the noise to bring you the insights that matter, helping you get truly well-informed. Today, we're doing more than just looking back at history. We're kind of stepping onto a stage. Imagine it. Akron, Ohio, 1851.
Okay.
Picture a crowded hall. It's a women's rights convention, mostly white attendees, men and women. There's this buzz, speeches, arguments.
But also tension, right? Because the whole idea of women demanding rights, speaking publicly, that was still pretty radical for many.
Exactly. And then someone unexpected gets up. A tall black woman, a former slave.
Yeah.
Sojourner Truth.
Not necessarily invited by everyone, maybe not even welcomed by some.
Right. But she moves forward anyway. And when she says next, well, it wasn't just a speech. It was like a tremor through that room.
Mm-hmm. Those famous words, ain't I a woman?
Powerful.
Yeah.
Devastatingly simple. And they just echoed. They challenged everything people thought they knew about what a woman was who counted as a person.
Absolutely.
So our mission today is to really unpack that, to get into the layers of Sojourner Truth's rhetoric. How did she do it?
How did these seemingly simple words create such a lasting impact?
Exactly. We want to see how she laid the groundwork for what we now might call intersectionality, this idea that struggles for equality are connected.
It's not just what she said, though, is it? It's the how, the delivery, the context, the person speaking.
Definitely. We're going to look at all of that.
Yeah.
And crucially, why it still speaks to us so powerfully today.
It really is incredible when you think about her background. Born enslaved, denied education.
Right. No formal training in rhetoric.
None. And yet, this intuitive grasp of persuasion, it kind of flips our usual ideas about where wisdom and rhetorical skill come from, doesn't it?
It really does. Her speech wasn't born in a classroom. It came straight from her life, her experience.
Yeah.
Forged in fire, really.
And delivered with such force. An unforgettable moment.
So let's start with the woman herself. To really get the impacts, we need to understand who Sojourner Truth was before that moment.
Yeah, absolutely. She wasn't born Sojourner Truth.
No, she was born Isabella Bumfree. In New York, into slavery. Think about that reality chattel slavery. Her family members sold away.
Including 4 of her own children. The brutality is just hard to fathom.
Constant forced labor, abuse, loss. It's staggering that she survived, let alone became this powerful voice.
Her spirit must have been incredibly strong.
And that point about her being illiterate, that's fascinating. She famously said, I can't read a book, but I can read the people.
Mm-hmm.
How do you think that shaped her, that ability to read people?
Well, I think it was almost a superpower, in a way. Not being tied to written arguments, to academic debates. It freed her up.
To see things more clearly.
Maybe. To observe. To intuit. When she said she could read people, I think she meant she could see past the surface, see the biases, the contradictions, the things people weren't saying.
Okay, so she wasn't arguing theory. She was presenting herself, her life, as evidence.
Exactly. Undeniable, lived truth. That's powerful. And her name changed, too. Isabella Bumfree becomes Sojourner Truth in 1843.
Why Sojourner Truth?
She said the Spirit called her to sojourn, to travel the land, testifying to the truth.
Wow. So the name itself was her mission statement.
Pretty much. A journey with purpose. Spreading this message that blended, deep religious faith with a fierce call for abolition.
And she wasn't alone in this fight. She shared platforms with people like Frederick Douglass.
Right, another giant of the movement. There's that amazing story, isn't there? Douglass gives this really downbeat speech.
Yeah, feeling hopeless about the fight against slavery. Understandable, I guess.
Totally. The odds seemed impossible. And then Sojourner Truth stands up.
And asks him,
Frederick is God dead. Just cuts right through all the despair.
Woo! What a question. In that context.
It's huge, right? It wasn't just theological. It was a challenge, a callback to faith, to resilience, a reminder that their fight was morally right, even if it was hard.
Don't give up hope. Remember the bigger picture.
Exactly. It anchored the struggle back in that spiritual conviction. And that conviction was crucial, given the world they were living in, the 1850s.
You mentioned contradiction earlier. This period seems full of it.
Oh, absolutely. Frederick Douglass wrote about it brilliantly. This nation talking about liberty, Christianity.
While enslaving millions.
Precisely. Douglass called it out boasting of liberty while being solemnly pledged to support and perpetuate the enslavement of 3 millions.
The Declaration says all men are created equal.
Well, a huge part of the population is in chains. It's this deep hypocrisy, this sort of national split personality. Douglass talked about a thick mist of moral gloom.
That phrase really captures it. And this wasn't just abstract hypocrisy, was it? It affected everything.
Yeah.
Douglas pointed out how slavery actually put a stigma on labor itself.
Yeah, that's such a sharp observation. The very people doing the hardest, most essential work were degraded for it.
And that degradation then gets used to justify keeping them enslaved. It's a vicious cycle.
Totally twisted logic. And Sojourner Truth's life, her own history of backbreaking labor, just blew that hypocrisy wide open. She was the work. She embodied the labor they simultaneously demanded and despised.
She was living proof against that stigma.
And the suffering went so deep. She talked about it, didn't she? How Black people had labored and suffered for the white people.
And then asked that devastating question. Why did they hate them?
I'm right, after all that. And she mentioned her children being sold to help educate ministers of the gospel. The sheer moral horror of that.
It's almost unbelievable. Using the profits from selling human beings to train people, meant to preach compassion.
It highlights the depth of the sickness. She said their minds were kept vacant and starving for want of knowledge, deliberately ignorant.
Taught to fear white people, taught to work almost from infancy, that thick mist of moral gloom again. It wasn't just political. It permeated everything.
It's the essential backdrop to understanding her speech. And then there's the specific setting, that Ohio Women's Rights Convention.
Right. Because she wasn't just talking about race or slavery. She was at a women's rights event.
And the ideas about womanhood back then, especially for white middle-class women, very different.
The ideal was delicate, right?
Mm.
Fragile, needing protection.
Exactly. Needing to be helped into carriages and lifted over ditches and to have the best place everywhere. That whole image.
Sheltered. Almost infantilized in a way.
That was the dominant idea she was about to walk into and just smash. Not with theory, but with the reality of her own life.
She was going to show them a completely different kind of womanhood. One they probably hadn't even considered.
And the way she started her speech? Just brilliant. Well, children, where there is so much racket, there must be something out of kilter.
Children, it's kind of disarming, isn't it? Like a wise elder stepping in.
Exactly. But it's also sharp. It implies the previous arguments, all that racket, might be missing the point, might be fundamentally flawed, out of kilter.
So it's both common sense and a subtle challenge. Cuts through the noise right away.
Sets the tone, no nonsense, truth-telling. She wasn't playing academic games.
And then comes that line, the core of it all. And ain't I a woman?
That refrain, it just hammers it home.
It's not really asking, is it? It's a demand. A challenge to their whole definition.
Absolutely. Who gets to be called a woman? Who gets the rights and respect that are supposed to come with that? She's tearing down their narrow, biased definition.
And she does it using herself as Exhibit A. Her life is the evidence. That's pure ethos, isn't it? Her credibility.
And pathos, too, the emotional power of her story. She forces them to look at her and confront their own assumptions.
Yeah, the power of that question.
Yeah.
It's logical, too, in a really direct way. Like you said, almost a syllogism.
Kind of, yeah. If you say women are this and need this kind of treatment, well, look at me. I do that. I endure that. So.
Ain't I a woman? The conclusion is inescapable if you accept her premises.
And her premises are her life, undeniable. It's Logos' logical appeal, but stripped down to its most basic, powerful forms. Plain words and common sense reasoning, as you said, dismantling all the complex prejudice stuff.
And she makes it so physical, so real. Look at me. Look at my arm.
Yeah, no room for abstraction there. She's literally pointing to her body, her strength.
I have plowed and planted and gathered into barns, and no man could head me. That's not the picture of the delicate flower needing help over a petal.
Not at all. She's talking about incredible physical strength, endurance. She could work as much and eat as much as a man when I could get it, and bear the lash as well.
That line about the lash.
Wow.
Wow. It connects her strength directly to the brutality she endured.
It completely demolishes the idea of female frailty. She's saying, my strength, my ability to endure pain and hard labor doesn't make me less of a woman. It's part of my reality.
If that kind of work defines manhood for some, why doesn't it confirm her womanhood?
Precisely. And those personal stories, her physical presence, that's her ethos, her credibility speaking. Aristotle said it's better for a speaker to seem honest than just have precise arguments.
And she was honest, unflinchingly so. Her life was the argument.
No academic precision needed. Her truth was enough. And the pathos, the emotional core, especially when she talks about her children.
Oh, that part is just gut-wrenching. I have borne 13 children and seen them most all sold off to slavery.
And when I cried out with my mother's grief, none but Jesus heard me.
It connects to that universal feeling of motherhood, that grief. Any woman there could feel something of that.
But then it highlights the unique horror for enslaved mothers. Your children aren't yours. They can be taken, sold. The powerlessness, the agony.
It's not just stating facts, it makes you feel it. Quintilian, the Roman guy, right? He said speakers try to evoke pity, paint pictures.
Yeah. And she painted a devastating picture of reality. It forces an emotional connection, not just intellectual agreement.
And then she flips it. She contrasts her reality with the supposed courtesies given to white women.
Right. Nobody ever helps me into carriages or over mud puddles or gives me any best place.
That's such a sharp observation.
Yeah.
It's not just complaining, it's exposing the hypocrisy.
Completely. It shows that those courtesies, that definition of woman needing help, were based on race. They didn't apply to her.
So black women were expected to be strong enough for the hard labor and the abuse, but somehow not woman enough for the basic respect or help offered to white women.
Exactly. She's showing how the concept of woman itself was racialized. She was excluded from the privileges, but burdened with all the hardships and more.
It's a brilliant dismantling of their selective definitions.
And she didn't just rely on personal experience, she brought in spiritual authority, too.
How so?
She talked about the promises of Scripture being all for the black people, that God would recompense them for their suffering.
So grounding their struggle in divine justice, offering hope.
A powerful hope. And that vision of heaven meeting the slave there, robes washed white, a place where slaveholders and bloodhounds can't enter.
That's incredibly potent imagery, especially for a religious audience.
Mm-hmm.
A promise of ultimate justice and peace.
It provides solace, but also a moral framework that judges the present world.
And she used religion to challenge the status quo, too, right? That line about Jesus.
Oh, yeah. Simple, direct, devastating.
Did Jesus ever say anything against women? Not a word.
Boom. Just like that, she counters centuries of interpretation used to keep women down. It's accessible, undeniable logic for anyone familiar with the Gospels. It forces them to rethink those justifications right there on the spot.
Brilliant. And after all that, the physical evidence, the emotional appeal, the logic, the spiritual grounding, she brings it all together in a call to action.
Doesn't she? We want to carry the point to one particular thing, and that is women's rights.
For nobody has any business with a right that belongs to her. I can make use of my own right. I want the same use of the same right.
It's so clear, so unequivocal.
And then the challenge. Do you want it? Then get it.
Wow, that's not asking permission. That's telling people to claim their power.
It's incredibly empowering and revolutionary for the time. Yep. Rights aren't just given. You have to take them, claim them. So looking at this through the lens of rhetoric, she was clearly a master, even without the formal training.
Yeah.
An unsung orator, maybe?
Absolutely. It speaks to that distinction Plato made, between rhetoric as just a knack, a superficial trick.
And rhetoric is a true art, based on reason and truth.
Right. And Sojourner Truth, illiterate as she was practicing the art form at its deepest level, driven by moral purpose, aimed at truth.
She wasn't just trying to win an argument. She was trying to reveal something fundamental.
Exactly. And think about Cicero's definition of the great orator, someone who can hold an audience, capture their minds, drive their wills.
She definitely did that. The accounts say the crowd went from skeptical to giving loud applause. She moved them.
She had that ability to connect, to make them listen, really hear what she was saying.
And she nailed those Aristotelian pillars of persuasion: ethos, pathos, logos.
Completely. We talked about her ethos. Her credibility wasn't from credentials, it was from her life, her honesty.
Like Aristotle said, better to show yourself honest than just be precise.
Yeah.
Her very being was the proof.
Undeniable authority.
And the pathos, the emotional power. We felt it just reading the words about her children. Imagine hearing her say it.
It wasn't just facts about slavery. It was the feeling of that grief, that injustice, making the audience connect on an empathetic level. Quintilian knew speakers used pity, painted pictures. She did that with raw reality.
Move them beyond just thinking to feeling.
And her logos, that common sense logic, the "ain't I a woman" refrain as that simple, powerful syllogism.
If A, strength, labor, motherhood, defines a woman, and B, I possess A, then C, I am a woman. It's straightforward, rational.
Using plain language to cut through complicated, biased arguments, exposing the illogic of prejudice with basic facts from her life.
Her style, too, that simplicity and directness, it's striking.
No jargon, no fancy words.
Yeah.
Russell Conwell, the Acres of Diamonds guy, aimed to speak so simply it felt like listening to a friend, not a preacher.
That's exactly what she achieved, wasn't it? Her dialect, her directness, it created this connection, like she was just talking common sense with you.
Made her message incredibly relatable, accessible to everyone there.
And engaging. Conwell also said a speaker first gains attention, then inspires. She definitely did both.
Oh, absolutely. Her presence, her spirit, those direct challenges, do you want it? Then get it. That's not passive listening. That demands engagement. It inspires.
This is a force. You couldn't just sit there passively.
And maybe the most profound part of her genius was her vulnerability. Think about that act.
A black woman, a former slave, standing before that mostly white audience.
And laying bare her pain, her struggles, her resilience, that takes immense courage.
Brené Brown talks about shame as the fear of disconnection, right? Fear that if people see the real you, you won't be worthy.
Exactly. And Sojourner Truth did the opposite. She dared to connect through her most painful truths, leaning into that discomfort, that risk, that emotional exposure.
Recounting the sale of her children, the lash, the lack of basic respect.
That's daring greatly, as Brown puts it. And by doing that, she transcended the shame that slavery and prejudice tried to impose on her.
She turned vulnerability into power.
Yes, forged this deep human connection that bypassed intellectual defenses. She was saying, see me, hear my truth. You cannot deny my humanity. That's incredibly powerful rhetoric.
And the impact wasn't just in that moment. That speech planted seeds, didn't it? For future ways of thinking about justice.
Definitely. Her speech inherently wove together race and gender. She wasn't just talking about women's rights or abolition. She was talking about the specific experience of being a black woman.
At a time when those movements were often separate. White suffragists focusing on gender, male abolitionists on race.
She showed how, for her, those things were inseparable, two sides of the same coin of oppression.
Which really anticipates the whole idea of intersectionality, decades before that term even existed.
It does. This understanding that different identities, race, gender, class, combine to create unique experiences of discrimination. She lived that intersection.
You can't understand her experience just by looking at race or just by looking at gender. You need both.
Exactly. And you mentioned Ruth Bader Ginsburg earlier. There's a fascinating conceptual link there.
How so?
Well, Ginsburg argued legally that characteristics like sex or race are immutable, visible things that have no necessary connection to ability.
Okay, so laws shouldn't discriminate based on those things.
Right. And that legal principle mirrors what Sojourner Truth was arguing from her own life. She was saying, look at what I can do, what I've endured, my race, my gender. These don't limit my ability or my humanity.
So Truth's lived experience laid the kind of philosophical groundwork for the legal arguments that came much later.
In a way, yes. The core principle is the same. Don't judge or limit people based on characteristics they can't control and that don't define their worth or capability.
That's a powerful connection across time. And her message wasn't just about identifying injustice, but about the fight itself.
Yeah, she said, fighting for rights, and there never will be a fight without it is a fight for rights.
Meaning the struggle is constant. It doesn't just end.
Seems like it. It's an ongoing process. Justice isn't just handed over. You have to continually fight for it, demand it, protect it.
Generation after generation.
And she wasn't afraid to call out the resistance. Those lines about men. If men had not taken something that did not belong to them, they would not fear. But they tremble, they dodge.
That's quite an accusation. What something do you think she meant?
Could be literal, the fruits of enslaved labor, their children. But maybe also something bigger, like power, rights, full recognition of humanity.
Things that didn't rightly belong only to men or only to white people.
Exactly. And she's saying their fear, their resistance, they tremble, they dodge, comes from knowing deep down that their advantage is unjust.
Exposing the insecurity behind the power. That's sharp.
It suggests that clinging to unearned power actually traps the oppressor in fear.
And her core message was also about individual worth, wasn't it? Self-sovereignty.
Yes. The idea that recognizing your own sovereignty, your right to an equal place based on merit, adds dignity to character. She wasn't asking for charity.
She was demanding recognition of inherent worth, a place earned by being human.
And urging women, be strong women, blush not, tremble not, rejecting that expectation of meekness.
Stand tall. Claim your power. Don't be ashamed of your strength.
It's a call for self-determination.
And she lived it, didn't she? Her activism didn't stop in Ohio.
Not at all. Her life was about applying that knowledge, that truth. She traveled, spoke constantly, Lincoln appointed her as a counselor to freedmen after the Civil War.
Helping newly freed people navigate that transition, that's significant.
And she never gave up on suffrage. I must sojourn once to the ballot box before I die. She kept fighting.
Her whole life was the journey her name implied, a constant seeking and speaking of truth. So bringing it back to today, what's the takeaway? Sojourner Truth used plain words, common sense, her own life, and turned a convention into this moment of incredible moral clarity.
A moment that still echoes. Her speech is like a beacon, isn't it? Showing how these different struggles for freedom and dignity are connected.
Yeah, reminding us that justice isn't simple. You can't just focus on one thing. You have to see the intersections.
We can't get to true equality by leaving people behind because their struggle looks different from ours.
And that question, ain't I a woman? It's bigger than 1851, bigger than race or gender even.
It's become this universal cry, hasn't it? A demand for recognition, for full humanity, for anyone pushed to the margins.
It forces us even now to ask, who do we see? Who do we count? Whose humanity do we fully recognize?
Whose definitions are we accepting without question?
Right. So as we think about her life, her words, she left us with a challenge, didn't she? Something she apparently asked often.
What was that?
What will such lives as you live do for humanity?
Wow. That puts it right back on us.
It really does. It makes you think, okay, inspired by her courage, her truth-telling, how can we, in our own lives, in our own ways,
speak truth to the injustices we see around us?
yeah, how can we dare greatly, like she did? Maybe in small ways, maybe in bigger ways. But how can we use our lives to contribute something meaningful to humanity?
That's definitely something to think about long after this conversation ends. A powerful legacy.
A very powerful legacy indeed.